Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we are going to be doing our predictions for the first week of matches for the final stage of the CDL season before we head to champs. And we are also going to be talking about some of the roster changes. We are 2 days ahead of the matches starting. This is being recorded on Wednesday the 22nd. So we are 2 days away from the matches starting, and we don't technically officially know what every roster is looking like because they aren't all officially announced. We basically have rumors for what they all look like, but aren't all officially announced. So kind of crazy that we're 2 days out. We don't technically know at the time I hit record on this who Florida's fourth is. We have an idea. Honestly, hopefully they have some issues with they're picking up their fourth on time and they have to play 4 ARs because that'd be kind of fun if they had to play Dave Patty out of nowhere. But without further ado, we'll get right into this one. If you guys do enjoy on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. We're approaching that 500 subscriber goal, which would be very cool to hit pretty soon. Maybe we'll do something special if we can hit that special video that maybe you guys want to see. If you guys are listening on the audio platforms, be sure to drop a follow on there, drop a 5-star review if you're able. We really appreciate the support on there as well. But yeah, like I said, we're going to jump right into roster news today and then do our predictions like we normally do. I'm very excited to get back into predictions. You guys know it's one of my favorite things to do, and it's been kind of a lull here with the CDL not having really any news besides roster rumors because they decided to take another midseason break for a few weeks. Makes no sense to me, but here we are. We're back. We're about to have matches in a couple days, so excited for that. And like I said, talked about doing a player tier list this week, but teams still can't solidify their rosters. We don't technically know who all the starters are for Paris, even though it's rumored. We don't technically know who all the starters are for Florida, so if they all announce, maybe if you guys really want to see it, we'll throw something together on like Thursday or Friday after the matches. We can throw something together, or we can just do the classic post stage 4 player rankings heading into champs, because there are certain teams right now that like really aren't going to make champs. So does it make a lot of sense to throw their players in a tier list? Probably not. So maybe we'll just do the post stage 4 player tier rankings for all the players that are heading to champs and the tier list before champs. So that way I can maybe throw somebody in D tier and then have them win champs or something crazy. But let's talk about some roster changes, huh? First one, Florida officially benched Dave Patty, and they cut Vivid completely from the team. Picked up Major Maniac in place of Dave Patty, and Too Real is rumored to be the player coming in for Vivid, but as of the time, like I said, you know, who knows with how close it is. Maybe while I'm in the middle of recording this, they'll announce it, but as of right now, they haven't announced their fourth. It's expected to be Too Real. Apparently, they also looked at Vickle, who's been on that EU, or EU or NA? NA, actually. He is from EU, but I'm pretty sure he's on the NA team for Toronto Ultra, but been a disgusting player all year, and apparently they looked into him, but he couldn't join because he was on a student visa. I'm not exactly sure how that all works. I believe he is a player in the CCL, or was at one point, probably came over on a student visa or something like that, and for whatever reason that restricts him from playing. I'm not sure all the details on that, so I don't really want to get into that because I'd just be talking on stuff I don't know. So it says, that's what CDL Intel said because he was on a student visa for some reason that restricted him being able to play with Florida, so they didn't really have a chance to look at him even if they preferred him. But it sounds like Too Real is joining the roster. Kind of an interesting move because myself included and many other people have been kind of calling for Dave to maybe get benched because I agree with a lot of the pundits of Dave Patty saying that, you know, he's maybe too slow to be on this Florida roster, and it just doesn't fit, especially when they have two other slower players for their position like Vivid and Skies. Or not, excuse me, not Vivid, Awakening and Skies. Vivid's definitely not slow for his position, but two slower players like that, and then they had a guy like Vivid who was ultra lightning quick. The pacing was just off. I agree, though, that I think Dave could potentially be a CDL player. I do think he definitely has the talent. He has the gun skill. He also has great communication. I think he understands the game well. It's just he doesn't like transition his understanding of the game that you hear through his comms into his gameplay. It's like he is just moving like a turtle on the map, and he's not really involved in the play very often. I feel like if he got in the right team that was able to speed him up a little bit and maybe was just matching him on his pace, got him to obviously meet them a little bit more in the middle because he can't be playing at this pace no matter what team he's on. But if he was able to get a team that was able to speed him up and make him feel more comfortable with his other players applying more pressure, I think it actually hurt him that he had so many slow players in his team because I don't think they were applying the pressure, which kind of allowed him to hide back there and feel like he was making the right play. Unfortunate for Dave, though, he did show us enough talent to prove that, you know, with expansion, maybe next year, if we go to 16 teams, I'm sure a team will be able to take a shot at him because also, let's be honest, Dave Patty, like, he was kind of memed early in the year, but like he's got a pretty good personality, and like he was funny. He was good in interviews. Florida was posting memes of him all the time and kind of using him as like a poster child on Twitter. Like the dude's got some personality. He's got kind of just a unique thing about him that is good for marketing. So I feel like with his gun skill, his communication, and that kind of unique ability to market him, and he seems to have a pretty cult-like following. Like people really love Dave, or they hate him, which, you know what, if you have a lot of haters, it's also not bad on social media for these teams, because hey, it's at least getting clicks and getting people to comment on your stuff and getting interactions. So sucks for Dave, but I think it's probably warranted. Major Maniac though, I don't know. It seems a little weird. They're bringing in another main AR to go on this team full of ARs. Skies and Awakening, kind of more naturally ARs. They bring in another third AR, which everybody was complaining was the problem. One thing I will say, I do think Major Maniac will be more involved in the plays. He's also known to be slower, but I do think he can be faster than Dave if needed. He's also an elite search and destroy player, and he seems to always find ways to win. You know, the whole saying, like, you always hear Formal talk about he's so tippable, he's so icy. They all talk about how icy Major Maniac is. I think he brings that to a Florida team that is maybe in need of some ice. Granted, they have been pretty good on land. They've beat OpTic twice on land in some upsets, and they've looked okay in general, but I feel like they were kind of in need of some clutch factor, some ice. Major Maniac brings that to the table. Still has that problem with multiple ARs, and unfortunately, like, I just don't know enough about Too Real because I haven't been keeping up as much with challengers, and he seems to be a little bit more of a newer player, at least to my knowledge, because I haven't heard much about him. I've heard the name before, but in like past years, haven't heard a ton about him. I know, obviously, people think he's very talented. I would assume he's slower than Vivid because it's harder to get faster than Vivid. He's arguably like the fastest player in the league, or one of them, up there with a guy like Abezy. So I guess what I would say is, like, I think Major Maniac will play at maybe a faster pace than Dave because it's hard to play slower, even though Major is also still slow. Vivid and Skies, I keep saying Vivid instead of Big Wake for some reason. Big Wake and Skies play at their same pace, and if Too Real is able to slow it down from Vivid, I guess maybe I could see a world where this could maybe make them better because overall their pacing will be more in sync, which will improve them. I do think the one thing this team has going for them that they could see an improvement is, I think gun skill-wise, they're still going to be nasty. Like, I don't think Major Maniac is a step down from Dave. I don't know about Too Real to Vivid. Vivid has some great gun skill, but with the way people talk about Too Real, I assume he's at least pretty close to Vivid, and then Skies and Wake are staying the same. So gun skill-wise, they're going to be able to just fry through teams. If their pacing gets a little bit better and they play a little more cohesive, they could get a little better in respawn, and with Major Maniac, I got to assume that they're going to get better in search and destroy, although Vivid is kind of a first blood machine typically, so kind of hurts to lose him, but I can see a way where this team improves. I just don't know that the ceiling goes up that much higher, so I don't know if I see them being much more than a top 6 team, but decent chance they could make it into champs, because I could see this team finding a way to go like a 3-2, getting winners bracket, and find another top 6 or something that gets them enough points to sneak in as like a 7 or 8 seed. All right, moving on to Boston, where Vivid went. Drop from Florida, goes over to Boston. He subs in for Cap. Vivid in for Capsidal. They keep Methods, TJ, and Nero in the starting lineup. Vivid joins for Cap. I don't like this roster move. I've been calling for Boston to make a change for a long time, even since they were doing very well in the beginning of the year. Kyle and I talked about it a few times. Don't know how much we talked about it on the podcast, really, but I was constantly saying to him, like, yo, Boston's got to make a change. Like, I think they're having some good finishes kind of make them delusional as to how good they are. I feel like they were always a solid team. Like, I always say it, Boston was always going to play you close. They were going to be good at search and destroy. If they could take a respawn off you, or if they could take 2 off you, they'd basically guarantee a series win, because it's almost impossible for them to lose 2 searches. And I really felt like that, and I still kind of feel like even if they would have kept their current roster, they always still would have been a really good search and destroy team. If they take a respawn, they have a good chance to beat you. I just don't see how this improves them. Like, technically, I could see them getting more wins because they really struggled recently. Like, they finished, top 12 at the last event, so they can't technically get worse, and they didn't have a good record in the qualifiers. But I just don't see how much this makes them better. I guess Vivid maybe puts a little more pressure on the map, but Cap was providing plenty of pressure as well. To me, if they wanted to bring in Vivid, I would have liked to see it for Nero. Now, don't get me wrong, Nero is a fantastic search and destroy player. His slaying is a little inconsistent, and what I always said about this team is I like their teamwork, I like their search and destroy, I think they have a lot of ability, but I don't think that their slaying upside is there to be able to beat the top teams, and they always got smoked by Faze and respawns, smoked by the top teams and respawns, and it seemed like that's where the gap was. Like, even with the old roster, I would trust them to go toe-to-toe with anybody in search and destroy. That doesn't mean I think that they're better than everyone in search and destroy. That just means that I think, in a series, they could go toe-to-toe if it went to a map 5, I feel like they could take a map 5 off anybody. Not meaning I'm going to favor them, but I could see them taking a map 5 off of anybody. There are certain teams in the CDL where it's like, if they go to a map 5 against some of the elite teams, like if they go to a map 5 against like an OpTic from early in the year in Search and Destroy when they had Illy, or like an Ultra who's always very good at Search, or a Faze who's not good at Search this year but is typically good at Search. Like if they go up against one of those very good Search and Destroy teams, there are certain teams you just think have zero chance. Thieves would probably be one of those teams that you don't think have a chance in a map 5. But I would say Boston's one of those teams that I think would always have a shot in a map 5 with that old roster. I still think they're going to be a very good Search team with this roster. I just think it doesn't improve their respawn. And like, you know, there's a honeymoon period. This might look stupid when they first start playing. Like they might look better in respawn just because of a roster change. You know, they freshen things up. Vivid is a very good player. And maybe he's a little bit better than Cap. Who knows? But I feel like this team needed a punch into the team where, like a slaying punch where it gave him the highest upside. And I think Vivid has a higher slaying upside than Nero because of his pace. And if he really gets on a team where I know his KD looks pretty horrible this year. I think he's one of the bottom KDs because his team was maybe playing so slow behind him and kind of leaving him out to dry on Florida. But I feel like if he was on the correct team with the correct pacing, we know TJ can speed it up and play pretty fast. Methods can speed it up when he needs to. He's known as a slow player, but like we've seen, he sped it up a lot on Ultra when he had to. And we know Cap can play fast. I would have liked to see Vivid in for Nero, have a sub duo of Vivid and Cap, kind of Vivid going in first, being your entry guy, Cap being more of your roaming slayer as a sub, TJ maybe playing a faster flex role, than Methods holding it down in the AR and trying to get back to MVP form. Because to me, Cap and Vivid both have higher slaying upside than Nero. I still think TJ's upside is there when it needs to be, especially like if they were to play a bow cage. I think between a sub trio of a Cap, TJ, and Vivid, if they're pulling out 3 subs, could be deadly. And Methods, obviously we know he's had some MVP-like performances this year so far, so I would have liked to see Cap and Vivid as a sub duo to you know, maybe raise that slaying potential. And maybe if Boston struggles, they'll bring back in Cap for Nero, as Cap just did win the Challengers event this past week in the Challengers Cup. So enough. I don't want to make this podcast too crazy long. I want to get into predictions, but I just guess, I don't know. My thought on this is it doesn't improve their slaying upside a ton, which to me is the weakness of this team. I think they fundamentally and Search and Destroy wise can go toe-to-toe with almost anyone if they're on that day and on point, but I just don't see the slaying upside improvement, which, like I said, is what I needed to see from this team to really start believing in them as a potential dark horse to make a run, because they're likely going to make champs because of their good finishes at tournaments early in the year and how many regular season wins they were able to pile up. They're probably going to make champs, and I mean, hopefully they sub in Cap in time, because I do feel like they have the highest slaying potential with him, which is what they need. All right, last technical roster move. I guess there's one more to talk about, but it's more of just a flip-flop back. But last, like, big roster move, LAG benched Asim and Gunless. They bring back in Neptune and Sparked. The one note I wrote on here for my first thing is just, yikes. Not a fan of this roster. Like I said, once again, you know, there's always potentially a honeymoon period where the roster could look better right away, and, like, you're going to look back maybe on me saying yikes to this roster and be like, hey, they look good right away, but, like, let's give it like a good amount of time. Let's give it like all the stage 4 qualifiers to see how they look, even if they come out hot. I believe they have a tough week this week. Yeah, they play Ultra and Subliners. Now, Subliners are back against the wall, basically have to win every match to win champs. And Ultra obviously have looked pretty good recently. So those are 2 tough matches for LAG to start the week and start, you know, this new era with this new roster. But I just don't like this roster a lot. Granted, like, they had to do something. Asim was really struggling. Gunless hadn't looked great since he came back. But they're subbing in 2 players. You know, Spart, obviously fantastic at Major 2. He wins that event, wins MVP, looks incredible. Kind of struggles a little bit once the Volk is taken out in post Major 2. And Neptune, you know, we saw him early on in New York. Granted, it's tough to really fully judge him from that because that team was in shambles and was just an absolute mess. So hard to judge Neptune from that. But, like, he didn't look good at all. He's looked okay in Challenger since then. He's looked pretty good at times. So I guess, like, you know, Neptune and Spark, they both have high upside. Like, we know Neptune's raw talent is there. Sometimes a lot of people question his plays in the map, which is a scary thing to be questioning on a slasher team, because, like, a lot of times his teams really rely on structure and making the correct play, and he'll get pretty upset if you don't make the correct play, and that's kind of his system. Like, it's all about making the correct play, and we've heard plenty of players have a complaint about Neptune that he doesn't play the correct way. It's just a tough situation because I do think, like, Asim in Majors 1 and 2 is probably this team's best player and most impactful player, but, like, recently he's been playing poor. Hook hasn't been playing great either. Slasher hasn't been playing great. Like, nobody in this team's been playing great. So, like, I could see a world where all of them are subbed out. I just don't know. I don't know. The Neptune and Hook duo, it's like, talent-wise, they have very high upside, but will they fulfill it? I don't know. If those two, if Hook is back in MVP form and Neptune is really slaying out, I guess that's the path for this team to improve, is between those two really slaying out and Spart hitting MVP form, and then Slasher just kind of holding it down the back. You know, I trust Slasher to hold it down in the back, but like what I just said to me is like way too many ifs. Like, you're hoping that Neptune can hit form that we really haven't seen from this year. We're hoping Hook can hit an MVP form, which is asking a lot, and we're hoping Spark can get back to his MVP form that we saw him in at Major 2, or at least a very good form. Like, that's a lot of ifs. Like, 75% of the team were questioning if they can get back to this form, if they can get back to that form. So, I don't know. Roster is just a mess to me. I kind of think LAG's chalked. I could see a way where, you know, maybe this improves them a little bit, because, like, between a Spart, Neptune, Hook trio, you do have a slaying upside to it, because there is a lot of raw talent there. So, maybe that's where they're going, but there's also a lot of raw talent with Gunless, Asim, and Hook, and it wasn't panning out for slaying potential. So I guess maybe that's the one path I see for this team. Neptune, Spart, Hook. There's a lot of raw talent there. Maybe they slay out, and maybe, especially in a game like Vanguard where maybe you don't have to play as clean, maybe just that team just running around and slaying out will help them open up the map a little bit and respawn and improve them. So it's hard to get worse because they've looked so bad recently, but I also don't know that this team is like a lock to get a lot better. Last little piece of news. Prolude is back in for Illy for at least the start of Major 4. OpTic put out like a mini video kind of announcing that Illy's injury. He had, I believe, a cortisone shot into his injured thumb, and it was about, like, what did they say, 1.5 to 2 weeks from the shot, and the doctor said it usually takes about a month to really get your full range of motion back and really feel completely normal again. So it sounds like Illy maybe tried to play a little early from that, didn't wait like the full month, obviously only like a week and a half, 2 weeks, like I said. Maybe didn't have his full range of motion, didn't feel completely comfortable, and with the way OpTics look with Prolude, which is, you know, still like a very good team, there's no reason for Illy to rush back, trying to get him ready for maybe Major 4 at the actual LAN tournament, and then obviously, especially for champs. So looks like that's what OpTic is looking to do. Prolude's coming back in. Hopefully Illy's ready soon, because, like, I think my last video in the title was like, Illy's back, and now in this video, what am I going to title it? Illy's not actually back. Like, it's been a flip-flop. Kind of sucks for OpTic, because I can't imagine as a player, obviously there's a lot of OpTic fans out there and a lot of OpTic trolls, but I really can't imagine as a player, first of all, what Illy's going through. We know how passionate he is. That has got to suck to just be like, hey, I think I'm about to play. Oh, just kidding. I got my hopes up, and now I got to wait longer. And, like, he's obviously probably in some pain, and it's like he just wants to do what he loves, and all of a sudden he can't because he's limited with a physical thing. Like, it's got to be super annoying for him and for the team. Like, if I was on the team, I would be losing full, like, we're about to get our man Inder back. Like, he's a great player. He means a lot to their team. And then it's like, you get your hopes up, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, he's not coming back. And that's not a shot at Prolude, because Prolude is a fantastic player. And has really been a blessing for OpTic to be able to pick him up and almost a seamless transition. Like, obviously they want Illy back because he's like their man, but I mean, Prolude's been good, and he's continued to get them good results. They had good qualifiers, you know, obviously didn't get what they wanted at the Major, but they didn't look horrible. It's not like they just fell off and were a completely terrible team. Like, still talking about them as a top 2 team. So Prolude's back in. Just unfortunate situation for Illy and for OpTic in general, because it's got to be annoying to just have to constantly flip-flop for something that's kind of out of your control. All right, we talked about the rosters for a little longer, almost 20 minutes there on rosters, so hope you guys enjoyed that little segment. We're going to jump into predictions. Going to try to keep this a little bit shorter. I think people have been enjoying the little shorter podcast formats and stuff, and kind of just jumping into predictions. So we got a few more bounty matches this week. It kind of seems like they're throwing them into random matches. It's so weird, because it's not like the bounty matches were something that was super popular the first time. It's kind of a little weird gimmick. I thought maybe they were going to, like, when I saw that they're coming back, they were going to, like, throw them in matches that, like, mean nothing for the teams to continue to get those teams to try, like, maybe throw them on, like, a Paris match, or like the bottom teams that are basically out, like New York, which they did throw on a New York match, but that match really matters because it also has Florida, who's also fighting for seeding for champs and fighting to get in there. So I don't know, bounty match is kind of weird, kind of a weird fluke thing. But first day of matches, Friday, June 24th, first match of the day, first match of stage 4 is actually a bounty match. Like I mentioned, New York versus Florida. Oh man, you guys know how I like to predict these. You know, New York, they're desperate. Their backs are against the wall. I think we saw, like, technically they said every team is, they made a video. I didn't really watch the full video, but CDL made a video that technically every team is still potentially has a chance to qualify for champs. I know Paris is something absurd. Like, they probably have to go 5-0, go maybe actually potentially purposely lose in the first round so they can get more CDL points on winning more matches and losers and then like win it all or something. And then, you know, New York's path is obviously very difficult too. They got to go like 4-1 or 5-0 and like win the major. Like it's very tough for those bottom teams to get in, but I guess technically no team is dead right now, they're saying, which is a little different than last year. I guess we knew some teams were dead with months left in the season. But this first match, tough to predict. Florida, a team that is, you know, has their backs against the wall. They made a roster change. Excuse me. Florida just made a roster change. Obviously, they are not in champs right now. They're on the outside looking in, but very close. Like they obviously have a very good potential, a better potential to make it than the subliners because they're a lot closer. And making a roster change, obviously we think Two Real is going to be in. Like I said earlier, I almost hope that maybe like it's a little delay in signing Two Real. Maybe a little delay in signing Two Real because maybe that means we'll see Dave Patty be forced to play, and then we'll have the Awakening Skies Dave Patty Major Maniac 4 AR roster, and we get to like see, because like people were memeing like, hey, Clay's going to join this team with Major Maniac, and we're going to have like the slowest team in history with 4 ARs, and I kind of want it to happen where like, oh, darn it, like Two Real like sleeps through his contract signing, and he gets signed a day late, and then all of a sudden Dave Patty's in, and we got the 4 AR match. Like, that'd be kind of funny to see. And the memes that would come out of it, especially with Florida's Twitter account, like they're probably the team that memes the most, so like stuff that would come out of that would be hilarious. But this is a tough one for me to predict, like I said, because New York backs against the wall, and Florida, you guys know if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, if I pick Florida, you should immediately go to your pick'ems and pick the team that they are playing, because when I pick Florida, they lose every single time without fail. Now, if you hear me pick New York in this match, you should go to your pick'ems immediately, and you should pick Florida, because whatever I do in every, like you watch, I think I'm going to pick Minnesota to beat Florida later on, spoiler alert, and I think I'm going to pick Florida to win this one. So you go to your pick'ems right now, you pick New York to beat Florida, and you pick Florida to beat Minnesota. You do the opposite of me, and I almost guarantee you it's going to be right. It happens with both Boston. This year it's new because Boston's a new team, obviously. So if I pick Boston, whatever I do in those matches, in a Boston-Florida match, you go opposite. And now they played each other, and like just recently, and I made a prediction for it, and I thought maybe the curse would be broken. And I'm pretty sure I picked Boston, and then Florida won. So I couldn't even break the curse when they played each other. It still happened to be opposite of what I picked. So if I am picking a Boston or a Florida match, there's 4 of them this week. You guys go when you pick the opposite. Trust me, you're going to go 4 for 4, and you can thank me when you win that prize from the CDL for being the best at the pick'ems for stage 4. So a little insider knowledge there for you. Hopefully no insider trading gets me in trouble. But first match, Florida, New York. Spent enough time on it. I'm picking Florida, like I said. I'm going to say 3-2. I think in Florida's first game, Major Maniac brings the ice, and they win a map 5. They haven't gone map 5 a lot. It's a lot of 3-0s, 3-1s for Florida, but going to go bold here and say Florida kind of puts a dagger in New York's chances to make champs right away, and they win 3-2. In a tight match, I could see both these teams winning. I think maybe more people are going to be picking New York than Florida, because I think a lot of people really like this New York team, and for whatever reason, they just can't perform at majors. 3 top 12 finishes is tough. Second match on Friday, OpTic versus Boston. Obviously, OpTic, like I mentioned, Pro Loot back in for Illy. I still like OpTic in this match. I still like it in the 3-1, I think. If this one goes map 5, it'll be an interesting one, because like I said, I put Boston as one of those teams that maybe I don't favor them in every map 5, but I do feel like they are a team that if it goes to map 5, I do think they have some clutch factor in them, and I like their team in Search and Destroy. I think they have a very good chance to beat a lot of these teams in Search and Destroy. I think they're probably a top half of the league, top 6 search team at the least. So I like them, but I like OpTic a little more, and I like OpTic a lot more in respawns. So I could see this being a series where I'm definitely going to say OpTic's going to take the control and probably both hard points and win in a 3-1 fashion, but I could see a way that OpTic takes the search because they're also a good search team. But I think this is a 3-1 written all over it. I'll give Boston a map because I do think with a roster change, they're going to maybe start to look a little improved in the short term. Even though I don't know how much they're going to improve long term. It seems like every time you make a roster change, you at least look a little bit better off the rip, just because, you know, it's a honeymoon period. Maybe people are trying a little bit harder to prove that, you know, like they weren't the issue to the roster. And like, if the roster doesn't get any better, they're going to start to question if they benched the wrong person. So I think a lot of people like to prove that wrong. So I think Boston will play a little tougher, but I got OpTic 3-1. Final match on Friday, we got Ultra Guerillas. Another team that made a roster change. They're just throwing, I wonder if they did that on purpose. They got Boston, Guerillas, and Florida, the 3 roster change teams, right on the top on Friday. So we get to see all those new look teams. But it's Ultra, Guerillas. like I said, of the roster changes, I see a path for Florida because they were already so bad with pacing in the 3 ARs. So like the fact that they have 3 ARs is not new to them. And I don't know much about the Turio kid, but people say he's very talented. So I feel like Florida could slightly improve. I think Boston could, like stay stagnant or have like a mini honeymoon period. I think LAG could do the same, but I just don't know how I feel about this LAG roster. And I feel like Toronto is always one of the safest picks in the CDL because it doesn't really seem like Toronto has an off series. They'll lose series, obviously, but I mean, I guess in the middle of the year they had a lot of off series when they weren't good. But when Florida's been good, or since the Cold War roster was formed, when Toronto has been good since the Cold War roster was formed with Cammy, Kleenex, Insight, and Vance, when they have been good, they're one of the most consistent teams. Like, they don't really ever have matches where it's like, wow, Toronto laid a dud. Like, they may lose, but they always at least seem to keep it competitive for the most part. So Toronto's one of those teams that I don't know that I can see LAG upsetting. So I'm going to go Toronto. Let's go into 3-1 fashion. Could see this going map 5, and I'm definitely picking Ultra in that, but let's go 3-1. First match on Saturday is Ultra again versus the Royal Ravens. An interesting one here because Gizmo is back. London's back to their roster with a lot of talent. I could see this being kind of a trap match for Ultra. Maybe they're coming off a win against LAG. They're feeling good. It was the last match they just had played the last night. Come back less than 24 hours later, and they're playing against the Ravens, who have been struggling recently. Gizmo's back. Could see this being a trap match. You guys know I've been riding for Ravens all year. I kind of want to pick them in this one. I think I might go bold and pick Ravens in like a 3-2 fashion. But the more I think about that, I just got done talking about how I trust Ultra almost more than any team in Search and Destroy. So I'm going to go Ultra. 3-2. I really thought about picking Ravens here because, like I said, with Gizmo back, I do think this puts them back to their best iteration of the roster by far, how good they looked. Although maybe I think it'll take Gizmo a little bit of time to get back into the groove of this team. I can see them drastically improving from where they were, but I think maybe it takes till week 2 or 3 until we really see the Ravens back on the uptick and like showing their potential again. I definitely think they have a chance to win this series, but I just like Ultra in a map 5 if it's going there because London has been shaky in Search and Destroy for a lot of the season, and Ultra, obviously, like I said, one of the best Search and Destroy teams out there. You can always trust them. So I'm going Ultra 3-2, but I think that series has banger potential to be one of the best of the week. That's kind of being slept on because I think there are some other series out there this week that a lot of people would be looking at to be better series. Second match of Saturday, Subliners, Guerillas. Guerillas, kind of trying to fight to hang on to that champ spot they got. That'd be kind of wild if they fall out of champs having won an event. Like, you would think, like, if you won an event, you're basically locked into champs. Kyle and I in the beginning of the year made the argument that should be the format. I still think winning a major, since there's only 4 of them, should lock you into champs. And it wouldn't be that bad this year because, OpTic obviously going to make champs regardless. Surge probably going to make champs regardless. And then Guerillas, chance that they don't make champs while they won a major. That's like ridiculous to think about. That means you've got to have a pretty bad rest of the year. So kind of wild. Guerillas are trying to fight to not be embarrassed by that. And Subliners, obviously, backs against the wall, basically have to be perfect. I do like Subliners in this one, though. I think it could get a little interesting should they lose the first match to Florida like I predicted. If they're basically dead in the water, maybe we see Subliners start to troll, maybe make some like weird changes and like trying out new players. So like, if they are basically eliminated by this point, it could be kind of chalked and we could be picking LAG. But I like Subliners in this one. I like them in a... I like them in a 3. I want to keep picking, like... I want to pick a couple 3-0s here because there always are a few, but it's like, it's tough. Screw it. I'm going to go bold and say New York 3-0s. I think there's a potential they're coming off a win against Florida. Obviously, I didn't pick it, but there's obviously a potential they could win that match. And they're going to try to carry that momentum. Like, let's say they do steamroll Florida. If they steamroll LAG and, get some momentum being 2-0, like maybe they start to believe that the dream is alive for champs, and maybe they roll Guerillas. I'll say 3-0. I don't like the fact that I picked Guerillas to go, 1-6 on map count, because even though I don't have faith in the roster, like I said, you typically tend to see a team play at least decent and maybe get a win pretty quickly after they make a roster change just because of that honeymoon period and then that period of everybody trying like a little extra hard to prove that they weren't the problem. But I'm going to go Subliners 3-0. Let's go bold. Then we've got OpTic versus Rocker Mountain Dew Marquee match on Saturday. This should be a banger potential. Obviously, Rocker went 5-0 in the Stage 3 qualifiers. They looked unbeatable online. They looked great. They got the #1 seed, and then they kind of bottomed out top 8 at the tournament, I believe it was. Didn't look good. Definitely did not live up to that 1 seed. They got beat in the first round by 8 seed Thieves, the last team in the winner's bracket. And then OpTic, obviously, I was excited to see Illy back. Now he's not back. I still think OpTic's a very good team, but I do think they're better with Illy. No shot at Proloot, though. He's been fantastic. This is almost one where I want to go with Minnesota, but I think I kind of have to go with my theory, and that's basically you pick OpTic and Faze in every match, because OpTic and Faze tend to go 4-1 basically in every qualifier or better, like 3-2 at the worst. They don't really ever seem to do worse than that. So OpTic and Faze are always going to win a majority of their qualifying matches, so it's hard to pick against them. You just kind of have to randomly choose it right. I do think there's definitely upset potential here because Rocker has looked so good online, but I like OpTic here. I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-2. I think this one's going to be an extended series. Like I said, could be a toss-up. I don't love picking against Rocker in a map 5 because they have guys like Havoc, who's a good search player, Attach, who we know is Mr. Iceman. Standy can be very good in search as well. This team overall could potentially be a great search team at any time, so hard to pick against them in a map 5, but I kind of had this theory where I pretty much pick Faze and OpTic in almost any match unless I'm really, really feeling that other team, because Faze and OpTic win a majority of their matches, as you can see by the standings this year. Final match on Saturday, Thieves Breach. I don't know why, but I feel like Breach is actually not a bad pick to pull off an upset. By the way, this is the other bounty match of the week. This is where the players get the extra money for winning. I don't know why, when I saw this match, Breach kind of stared me in the face, and I thought maybe I'll pick them here as kind of, I don't know, it's two teams that are, I feel like, pretty close in a lot of people's eyes. I think right now maybe Thieves are more favored because they've looked better as of late than Boston. But they're so inconsistent. Like, in all 5 of their qualifier matches, I believe it was a 3-0, or they got 3-0'd. Like, they played, in their qualifiers for Stage 3, they played, 15 total maps because it was 5 3-0s. Like, they played no maps, the least amount of maps you could possibly play, because it was either 3-0 or 3-0 every time, like I said. Boy, I feel like I favor Boston in search here. I feel like I favor Thieves in respawns, and for that reason, we're going to go 3-1. Jeez, I can't speak today. 3-1 Thieves. I guess I'm maybe thinking Thieves are going to win 3 respawns, but I could see a world where Boston could definitely take one and they force them at 5 and kind of all hell breaks loose. But I'm going to go with Thieves here just because as of late, they've seemed to be the better team. I don't necessarily think that the sub-duo on Thieves is super strong because Kenny's been shaky and Envoy has been overall very good this year, but has had his down moments as well. But the Nero and Vivid sub-duo on Boston, I also don't think is crazy. Kind of 2 weak sub-duos in terms of consistency and slaying consistency going at it. So I don't think one team really overwhelms each other in the matchup department. I think Octane and Methods can pretty well match each other. And I also think that, TJ and Draza can pretty well match each other. Overall, I don't think these teams have any, crazy matchup differences. I just like Thieves a little bit more because they've been good recently and have looked pretty decent, finishing top 2 at the Pro-Am and then finishing top 4 at the last major. Overall, just been a little better, so I'm taking them 3-1. Final day of matches, Sunday, June 26th. Honestly, kind of a weird day of matches. Maybe not too many matches that people think are going to be that close. We've got the defending champ Seattle Surge going up against Paris Legion. I feel like, I always say I like to pick 3-0s. I feel like this is where you've got to go for a 3-0. You've got to think that the Surge are going to win. Obviously, the rumor is that Johnny's in for Paris, but you've got Jimbo then. In Canada still, struggling. His ping has been pretty high compared to the players in the lobby. You've got Johnny, playing in his potential first CDL match. Granted, we've heard from a lot of people that Johnny looks a lot better online than on LAN, but it's a Johnny and Jimbo sub-duo, not overwhelming there. And then Temp obviously has been great this year, and Gravity has been a decent main AR, but they're playing the defending champs. I feel like this is the point where I got to pick a 3-0, so going 3-0 Surge here over Paris. Second match of Sunday, second to last match of the weekend, Florida Rocker. Another awfully interesting one here. Florida, mysterious, coming off the roster change. Minnesota, dominant, like I said, in Stage 3 qualifiers and struggled at the LAN. It's online, though. Minnesota looks good. I feel like they're definitely the more finished product right now and the product that we feel like we know a little bit better, even though they have also been very inconsistent. But for the fact that I feel like I know them a little better, I'm going Rocker in this one. I think I'm actually going to say this one extends to a 3-2, though. Florida, they haven't played a lot of 3-2s this year, but there's a lot of mystery with that roster, and I do feel like Major Maniac always seems to make things close, regardless of how I like the structure of the roster or not. We'll see if the Two-Real kid is legit, if he is actually the play, but I'm going to go Minnesota 3-2. I trust their search and destroy a little bit more, even with Mr. Iceman, Major Maniac on the other team. Final match of the week, marquee match, the Mountain Dew marquee match of Sunday. Faze Thieves. Did I mention I like to pick 3-0s because there's always some? Yeah, I'm going to go 3-0 here. I think Faze dominate Thieves. They had their number at the land. They 3-0'd them and just really stomped them there. Faze just, it seems like respawn talent-wise is just head and shoulders above Thieves. And they've been struggling recently in Search, but I would definitely say that they're a better Search team than Thieves. Like, it's coming down to one map of Search to, you know, win a tournament, win an event. I'm still taking the team with Simp and Abezy on it because both of them are fantastic Search players. And so is Cellium, and so is Arcitys. They've just been struggling recently, but I'm taking that team over that Thieves team any day in Search when it really comes down to it. And respawn-wise, they seem to outclass them recently when they play them. So I'm going Faze 3-0. That's going to do it for this one, though. Really got through everything I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover the roster changes. Maybe went a little longer on the roster changes than I wanted to, but I was getting into it. I was getting passionate. I enjoy talking about roster stuff so much. Also, it was fun to get back into my predictions and get back to talking about some matches because, you know, it's been a while because for some reason the CDL keeps on just putting these random breaks in the middle of the year. But if you guys enjoyed this one, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Comment down below your thoughts on the roster changes, your predictions for this week. I'd love to hear them. And if you could subscribe if you enjoyed, that'd be greatly appreciated because we're on the road to 500 subs. Maybe have some newer things in the works cooking up. But on the road to 500 subs, that'd be kind of a crazy goal to hit that I could have never imagined, but it would be awesome to hit that, so I'd appreciate it if you guys would hit that sub button. If you're on the audio platforms, you want to drop a follow, drop a review on there. The support over on those has been crazy as well. I really appreciate you guys. That's going to do it for this one, though. I will see you in the next one. Hope you guys enjoy watching the first matches for Stage 4. Look forward to reading your comments down below, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone.